All right, so let's go ahead and kick this off. So today we're going to talk about 9 must-have features for your next embed project. We'll do a quick demo to highlight some of the features and just kind of give you a feel for where to find things if you are new to Reveal. If you're not new to Reveal, then a lot of this will be just a refresher, which is good because we believe that Reveal can really help your existing applications or your new applications drive that data-driven culture, drive revenue, amongst other things that we'll talk about today in your organization. So with me, as usual, is Casey McGuigan. She's a product manager for Reveal. She's been with the product since day one. So any questions you have, use the chat or the Q&A in Zoom, and you will get those answered. My name is Jason Barris. I've also been with the product since day one, but I'll do a bunch of other things here at Infragistics as well. And I'm excited to do this webinar with you guys today. So today's agenda, we'll look at embedded analytics, why it's important, your 9 must-have features. We'll do a quick demo. I have a Blazor demo and I have an Angular demo just to give you a feel for how this might look in different platforms and technologies. This morning, I actually had a call with a customer. They were using ASP.NET Web Forms, which was cool because this guy was really smart. He had his Web Forms app, and then he had which was, I think, .NET 4.6, like legacy stuff. But then he had a .NET 6 web API as the backend just for Reveal. So he was kind of pulling all this together really, really well. And it was pretty impressive. A little housekeeping, recording and slides will be available after the webinar. Again, please ask questions in the window. So what is embedded analytics and what is the value? You know what the value is. It gives you the in-context capability of delivering data in a consumable way in your existing application. So different than a SaaS app, software as a service, where you have to log in, username, password, and then you got a bunch of links and you're kind of looking at stuff online. And then, oh, I got to go back to my application now to actually do my work. That's the big difference. This whole loop of jumping out of context loses time, loses your thought process. It takes like, I don't know, a minute or so to get back to where you were. It might even be longer. We did a webinar on that. There's been a lot of research on jumping in and out of context, what that costs a company, but it's many hours a week. It adds up so much that each individual worker loses hours a week going from app to app just to find information, then trying to bring it back into the other app to make some business decisions. So embedded BI and embedded analytics really alleviate that problem. So the nice thing about embedded BI is you're not limited. So just because you think, well, if I'm using Power BI, I've got all these data sources and I can have all my dashboards in a nice little area and I can group them and sort them. You can do the same thing with embedded BI. In fact, you have more flexibility with embedded BI. Not only do you have the same level of data sources, but how you use those data sources, how data is brought in, how you might have multi-tenant, you might have row-level filtering based on user IDs. You may want some people based on their login to see things different than other people. All of these things you have API control over in embedded BI, embedded analytics like Reveal. So because there's an API, because you have an approach where you're setting properties, you have methods, you have events where you can do more with your application, you're going well beyond what you can get out of a SaaS app. One of the big, I guess, industry efforts around BI, maybe over the last 10 to 15 years, has been how, embedded BI or BI does all these good things for an organization. But embedded BI started to really get a lot of attention maybe 2015, 2016 timeframe. So you saw a lot of traditional SaaS vendors saying, hey, you can also embed this. We're going to talk about how they embed it a little bit later and why it doesn't work for you. But in general, Gartner did some research on this, and 87% of application providers said that embedded analytics is important to their users, meaning I have visualizations and charts within my application, and maybe it's using data that I'm already looking at, but just in a different way, or maybe it's pulling in other data sources, combining it, and then letting me gain new insights and make better decisions faster with that data. So embedded analytics is something that is not only popular, but it's highly requested by application providers. So what are the benefits of embedded analytics? Infragistics has customers with Reveal that cover all different kinds of approaches to delivering value to their end users. So of course, increased productivity. We talked about that. Data-driven culture and decision-making is huge. We did a whole webinar on this. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/revealbi, and you will see our webinar on data-driven culture and how that can actually drive more revenue and all the research and studies that have done there. In fact, I think we also have a white paper on revealbi.io, which you can read, which has some of those numbers. Competitive advantage is what most of our customers are trying to do. So for example, the customer that I was talking to today, you might argue if they have a .NET 4.x web forms product that might be considered legacy. While most applications in the enterprise today are considered legacy, it's very rare that developers are blessed to work on the latest and greatest technologies, doing the coolest stuff. A lot of us are just building enterprise apps, and we're maintaining those apps over years and decades. So how do we deliver competitive advantage in our existing applications and more value to either our external or internal customers? Embedded BI is perfect for that. You're going to see a demo today on how I embed Reveal into maybe an existing app, we can call it, and how it really can make a difference. And then increase revenue. We also have customers that charge extra for embedded BI. So for example, one of our largest clients is the largest ERP vendor in the Japanese market, and then they're spreading out into all of Asia. So they have reports that are part of their application, but then for a few extra dollars, you can get the advanced reports, which provide visualizations, dashboards, self-service, amongst other things, connecting into the AWS cloud. And they're charging extra for that. So maybe if they charge, $10,000 a year for their software, maybe the reporting module is another $2,500, $5,000, whatever it may be, but it can drive revenue, not only from customer acquisition because you have interesting new competitive features, but also because you can charge more for these capabilities. So now let's look at some of these 9 must-have features. Number one, and this is something that we really focus on at Infragistics, our CEO has a company meeting every few weeks. The whole company gets together across the globe, and simple and beautiful is something we drive into every one of our products, and it reminds us of it all the time. If it's not simple and beautiful, then we can't ship it to customers. And this is hard to do, especially when you have a lot of different types of products. Well, for Reveal, since it's something that you have to give to your customers, we need to do extra work to make sure that it's easy to use and absolutely beautiful. So I'm not saying that we win every customer that tries out Reveal. The ones that we've lost, I can tell you one of their top 2 or 3 things that they love the most about Reveal was that it was so easy to use and it was so visually stunning. Okay, why did we lose those customers? There's a host of different reasons, but that's why there's a competitive market out there. We don't have every single feature, but we try to hit the ones that matter the most. Simple and beautiful is the number one thing that we hear back from our customers. Self-serve is also big. In fact, many vendors don't even allow self-serve in their web SaaS apps. You have to download a desktop client to build dashboards, save dashboards, upload them somewhere, and then you can view them on the web. Reveal has self-service features on the web and on the desktop, so you don't need a separate app. So when you're delivering embedded analytics to your customers, they can actually edit that dashboard, change things around, add new data, do whatever they want. The great thing is because it is an API, it's an SDK, you can disable that edit button. Doesn't exist, they won't see it. Property setting, is editable equals false or something like that. I'll show you what it looks like when we do the demo, but you have complete control over what the user can do. Dashboard linking is also really important. Reveal has some unique features. You can do drill downs within a visualization. You can link from one dashboard to another, or you can link from a dashboard to an external application. So for example, why is that cool? Let's say that I have a chart or a list or a table of a bunch of customer, issues. And it says, oh, customer A has 100 issues. And then there's a little link button that you programmatically set. On this link, go open up all of their issues in Salesforce and do a report there so that I can just in context go right to where I need to go. So this is where dashboard linking, dashboard drill downs, and linking to external URLs or web pages or whatever you might want to be, whatever's registered on the machine, makes it really easy to do stuff. Rich data analysis. So we support within the product a bunch of statistical functions with visual indicators. So for example, if you want to see what the statistical function is for regression, we will highlight that but with a different color inside of a table or in the chart. If you want to look at something like a time series forecast, like, hey, what's this going to look like over the next 6 months based on the last 18 months? Show me that. Or maybe you want a trend line. Maybe you have, you want to see a Quartic fit trend line over a time series to see where something is going or what the historical data look like. You can do that sort of rich data analysis. The other cool thing is if you are a little bit more advanced, and let's say you're using Azure machine learning models or you're using Google BigQuery ML, we will pull those in as well. So if let's say in Google BigQuery, I have like a 20 gigabyte data set and I want to do some sentiment analysis on that, you can actually just point to that Google BigQuery URL. We will activate it, pull down the data, and then chart it for you in the visualization. Just like that. You don't have to write any code. It just sort of works. Theming and branding is critical. I'm going to show you today a very simple theming and branding example, but I'm going to show you where to find some other theming and branding examples too. But anything you want this to look like, it can. So if you are Coca-Cola company and Coca-Cola has that specific shade of red and they use the white color in their logo, you can make your application look like that. If you are a hairdressing company and you want to use different colors of styles of hair with makeup and all these crazy things like pinks and blues and all these other things, great. We have customers that have styled this product in so many different ways. The bottom line is you have the ability to do that. If you're not using an embedded analytics SDK, you are beholden to what is available by that vendor, which for the most part is nothing. So you're going to have a dashboard with a white background that you can't edit that looks nothing like your application. So make sure that you're looking at this when you're choosing your vendor. And then this is another huge thing. This blows my mind that there's vendors today that say that you can embed their dashboards in your app, yet all of the parameters are just sent over in a URL. So since when is that a good idea? And in fact, one really big vendor, I think it's Looker, the only parameter you have is color. You can't like change other things. So you really have to dig into it. So even though they say they're in an embedded SDK, look and see what's actually happening. So when I say URL driven, it means that in the URL, you're just passing over some properties, which is sort of old school and it's also risky in terms of injection versus doing it on a server function or a client function, which is embedded into the capabilities of your application. So with Reveal, there's no risk of SQL injection attacks. You're not doing risky things client side. You're not passing crazy parameters outside of the context of whatever framework you happen to be using. So that is probably the biggest differentiator that we hear as well, is that we actually have that API. Modern architecture and data sources. I kind of mentioned data sources earlier, but you don't lose with an embedded analytics SDK. You actually gain more because you have more control over how those data sources are used. And the nice thing is there are times you want to do data processing on the client and you want to do data processing on the server. You have total control over how that happens with the Reveal SDK. And of course, as far as deployment goes, we have a modern architecture. You can put this in your container, in a Kubernetes container, in a Docker container, and deploy it wherever you want in AWS, Azure, Google, it doesn't matter, your own on-prem servers, and have access to that. So you can script that entire deployment. Big thing here is samples. What we do is we track, of course, in dashboards, all of the common scenarios that customers are using. So most of our customers, I believe it is a React front end with using SQL, Postgres, or MySQL as a database, and they have a Java backend. Actually, I think it's .NET Core is the most used backend, and then Java a second, and then we just released Node. So if you're a React guy or an Angular guy using Node, go to our GitHub repo. There's samples there. If you're a .NET developer using ASP.NET Web Forms or MVC, those samples actually ship with the product when you install the SDK. As I mentioned, the customer today, they had a host of different technologies. You got jQuery with ASP.NET with SQL Server, and then you've got a .NET Core backend. So all these different combinations, you have options. And the nice thing is, we do not have any limitations in the platform. So if you do a matrix here, you've got Apache, .NET Core, straight up Java, Spring, Node.js, and then start drawing lines to WPF front end or a Vue front end or web components, React, Angular. It doesn't matter. We work with whatever you are using. So you're not limited to say, oh, I just want WPF. Great. We have a WPF SDK and it works perfect. And in fact, our biggest customer is using our WPF SDK. And then, oh, I'm using Angular with Node. Great. Works perfect. Oh, I'm using Vue with Spring. Great. Works perfect. We have samples for that. So we're not limiting you on what you need to use. Now, of course, we have to live within a little bit of confines. So like if you're using a very legacy version of .NET 4 point something that's not supported, use your .NET Core server or your .NET 4.78 upgrade or whatever it might be. So we've really had no issues, especially since we added Node. We had a lot of requests for Node, and that was something that we delivered this year. Late last year, we delivered Java. And then since the very beginning, we've had .NET. So with that, how about we do a quick demo here? What I'm going to do is show a couple things. I always want to highlight our GitHub repo. So if you go to github.com, reveal BI, this is where if you're just learning, if you're doing a POC, if you want to get started with the product, this is where you go because it's where all the samples are. So a lot of the samples that I like to reference are in this SDK samples JavaScript repo. So what I would do if I were you, I would go here and open this thing up in Visual Studio Code or download the zip because it has all of the key samples that you need to get started and to understand how the API works. So for example, most people are going to be loading dashboards from a file. So if I go to my load dashboard from a file sample and I go to the client, you can see we've got one file in here, index.html. And this is showing me that I need a couple dependencies, a couple script files. And then here is where the actual hard work happens of taking that dashboard file and loading it into my screen. I'm going to show you how this works in a second in an actual running app. But what I want to highlight is that within this GitHub repository, you have both the client and the server for all of these options that you may want to try here. So theming, I'm going to show you some theming stuff. But here, if I go to the client, how could I set my theme in JavaScript? Well, we've got themes that we ship with the product. We also have the ability for you to custom, the back color, the fore color, the visualization color. So you can get an idea here, like here, theme.bold font is Wingdings, medium font Gabriola. So this is just an extreme example, but you don't really need to know much more about theming than what's in this example. So that's pretty slick. And then of course, this is this happens to be the GitHub repo, but at revealbi.io, which is the website, you can do things like download the SDK, request a demo, and kind of learn about a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today. And I mentioned our YouTube channel. I would go to YouTube and sort of take a look at how all this works. So what I want to do first is I'm going to open up a new instance of Visual Studio. And I want to show you how easy it is to create the Reveal server. So I'm going to create an Angular app and I want to link into a Reveal backend, right? Because this is the web, right? So I have my dashboards and maybe I have some other customizations on the server side. So I'm going to use .NET Core and I'm going to create a new ASP.NET Core Web API project. I'm going to call this Webinar Demo 1. And I'm going to uncheck use controllers. I'm going to use the minimal API. It doesn't matter what you do. However, I just learned something that is kind of new. In fact, it might be with this version of Visual Studio that I'm using. where they removed a couple things, which I thought were there earlier. So let me go to help and about. Oh, this is 17. Oh, this is 2022. So maybe this is the most current bits. I guess it's right. But anyway, I'll show you where I took a little misstep yesterday. So what I'm going to do first is I want to add reveal to this so I can use the reveal server. So I'm going to go ahead and manage my NuGet packages for this solution. And I'm going to go to browse and I'm going to type in reveal BI here in the search box. And what you're going to see is at NuGet.org, there is a reveal SDK web ASP.NET core trial. So I'm going to select it. I want to add it to my project and I'm going to click install. And this goes through the normal stuff. If you're used to this, just click OK, I accept. And now we are in good shape with reveal. So all of the work is going to happen here in program.cs. And what I want to do is load some dashboards from this server into this Angular client and this Blazor client that we're going to create. So I'm going to add some dashboards here. So the way we do a lot of stuff in reveal to make it so you don't have to write any code is we just use named folders. So dashboards is one of those named folders. So I'm going to add some existing items here. On my desktop, I happen to have some dashboards that I already created. There's videos on how to create dashboards, but you'll be able to see today how to do it as well. It's pretty easy. We also have a product called Slingshot, which you can use to manage all of your created dashboards and do a bunch of other things as well. It's a digital workplace, which is actually pretty slick with embedded BI. So now that I have these dashboards, what I want to do is when I run this server, I want to make sure that if I point to dashboards.r-, it loads the dashboard. The r- is basically a zip file with the JSON file, which is the dashboard definition that we're going to load up in the client. So because I did add reveal to this, there's a couple things that I want to do. So the first thing is here, we can use a using statement, and I'm going to use reveal, and you can see I get my IntelliSense. So I'm going to do a using reveal SDK like so. And then the other thing is we need to add the controllers and then add reveal. So I'm going to say builder.services.what, let's add controllers. And these controllers, I want to add reveal to those options like so. So now my server is lit up with reveal. And now when we do this stuff, we have to make sure it's done before builder.build. Now, since I'm going to be running all this locally, I need to make sure that I add a cross-origin resource scripting policy. So I happen to have this in my little toolbox here. I just drag and drop it. So I'm going to say builder.services add cores with the following options: allow from any origin, any header, any method. And that just means I can run this locally. And then to make sure that you don't mess anything up, you say in this little if block, if app.environment.isDevelopment, which I'm going to be in, I'm going to say app.use cores. So let's do cores here. Whoops, use cores. And in use cores, we're going to say allow all like so, because that's what we called it. So here I've got my policy that I added, app use cores. What do I want to use? I want to use this policy called allow all. And that's all I need to do. I don't need to do anything else. Now this stuff here, this is just some other muck that gets added by default when you do a .NET app. And this is actually getting removed with .NET 7. They said they were going to remove this stuff. But one thing that I did learn was that you need to add a couple more lines of code here. And in fact, I didn't add it to my other guy here. So let me grab this. Use authorization and use controllers need to be added. In fact, let me stop this. This is an old one. After use HTTP redirection. So map controllers is going to make sure that all of the reveal automatic functions are tied together. This is all I need to do. I'm done with my server because I'm not going to do anything like, save as or change data sources, whatever. I'm just going to do this. So now when I hit run, because it's .NET 6, we have the Swagger file that pops up. So this is like the Swagger definition of my web API. And you can actually see all of the API that you get with Reveal. So you can do all of these things here. So I'm going to go ahead and just test this out with a get. So let's try it out. I'm going to type in sales because remember, I added that dashboard in my dashboards folder, and then it went ahead and it got the sales folder. So now I'm ready to go. How do I use this? Well, let's go ahead and copy the URL. So HB localhost 7234 now is my running server. So this is the server we just made. It's running. Everything's good. Now I happen to have a Blazor application here that's already running. And I'm going to slide it right over. And I'm just going to show you all of the code that you need to load a dashboard. So the way that Reveal works is Reveal has a client-side library and the server-side server, which we just created the server with our NuGet package. So now my server's running. I can deploy that anywhere in the cloud. It's great. But now how do I load these dashboards from the client? Well, from the client in my index.html, I need to tell my application that there is an infragistics reveal.javascript file. So there's two ways to acquire this file, through our global CDN or through installing the SDK from revealbi.io when you click install or try out or whatever. So you have a server, you have a client. So in this Blazor app, I've added our dependencies. So we have 4 JavaScript dependencies that will load Reveal. The key one being reveal.js. Now, where does this reveal.js come into play? Well, I have a 11-line JavaScript file, which is pointing to my server. So in this case, I've got, I'm pointing to a server that I don't want to use. I want to use localhost 7234. So I'm just going to copy this guy and let's comment this one out. So we don't want to use that one. And I want to take this 7234, Control X. I'm just going to paste it just like that. So it's going to use that server that we just created, right? Now I'm doing, because it's an API, we also, do things in the API that aren't public yet or not released to manufacturing, RTM. So I'm going to use our new charts and enable beta features. Beta features, I don't think there's any, but I know there's a couple different differences in the charting, and you'll see that if you are using Reveal now and you've never enabled new charts. And then all I have to do is accept the dashboard name and then load that into a div. So the Reveal view is actually going to be this div that I created in my HTML file. And my HTML file, I will show you, is this dashboard viewer.razor. And what we got in here is a div called Reveal View. So there's Reveal View. And in my dashboard or Reveal View.js, I'm loading it into # Reveal View. Now in this dashboard viewer, the only thing I'm doing is passing in a parameterized query of the dashboard name. And you'll kind of see how this comes together. So I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to show one more file because I'm doing something a little clever here. I actually have a cloud-based JSON file, which has a bunch of dashboard names and URLs. And I'll click on it so you can see what it looks like. And I'm going to load this up into my card view. And when I click on it, it's going to pass over the name of the dashboard to load, just using that client library. So when I run this guy, all of this, like if we did this from scratch, it takes less than 15 minutes. It's like really fast. So this is my app, right? So I've got all these nice cards that I loaded up in a card view, just regular old Blazor code. And now when I click on this guy, it passes me to this page, and you can see that it says load up the campaigns dashboard. And here I am inside of campaigns. Now, if I go back and I click social media, it loads up the social media file. So I'm loading dashboards dynamically on the fly from some list that I got from the cloud and then my local options. And if you remember, we talked about editing, exporting, all these other things. Now I'm kind of activated this to be in the editor. So for example, let's say I want to resize this chart or do whatever. I can change anything I want. I can go down to this guy and click edit. I can do a rename. I can do a copy. I can do all kinds of things to this based on just the capabilities of the SDK. All of this is an option for you. I can add new visualizations, kind of do whatever I want. But what I want to do is take you over to this Angular app that I have, which I'll close this guy. What we'll do is we will actually go back here. I'm going to grab this to make sure we're using this URL. And I've got my Angular app running here already inside of VS Code. So if I click this guy, it's going to look kind of similar. I started this app in another product we have called App Builder. And if I click my dashboard list, I've got a nice list of dashboards. And if I click healthcare, here I am inside the healthcare app. I've got the same options, edit, add visualization, do all this stuff. So let's say I want to add a new visualization. Let me use this data source, which is already being used inside of this dashboard. Now I'm in the visualization editor. So let's go ahead and maybe do spend by month, like so, for the marketing team. And this is, I can do average spend by month. And is this going to be a dollar amount? Yeah, let's do currency. And I'll update the field. So there's my average spend by month. Let's change this to average spend by month. I don't like this blue. I want to go with an orange. And I don't need the title or the legend because it's kind of obvious what it is. And I want the zoom level to be a little higher when people look at this for the first time. So how about we do it like so? Now I click the checkbox, and just like that, I'm in business. I want this guy to be all the way down here, and I'm done. There you go. I've just added a new visualization to an existing chart, self-service, all by myself. But if you don't want to do that, you can disable this edit button. And how do you do that? How do I change the color of this to make it dark like the rest of my theme? Very easily. Let's go back to our Angular app. And here I am inside of the code, which is the same exact code we just looked at in the other sample. But remember, we were going to change this to point to our own URL. Now it's going to recompile. But look at all these options I have. I can set true or false on any of these guys. So reveal.canEdit equals false. I want to remove the ability to edit. I don't want anyone to maximize visualizations. Let's see, what else can we do? Let's change the theme. So I want to use our Mountain Dark theme. So I'm just going to uncomment this like so. Set the back color to be whatever that happens to be, which is a darker one. Oh, and by the way, I want this to be deployed in Korea. So let's make sure that the Korea thing works. Well, let's see, view problem. Looks like this won't work. Reveal API. What did I do here? Well, we don't need to debug that today. We won't do anything with Korea. We'll test Korea tomorrow. How's that sound? Now let's go back to our dashboard. And here I am. Let's go back. I'm going to do a refresh, and let's grab our healthcare dashboard again. And well, what happened? Let's see what we did wrong here. Live debugging, developer tools. The great thing is that because this is happening client side, oh, I got to swap out the server. Sorry. So those dashboards specifically were coming, it's a different data source coming from a different server. So it says, hey, the file name healthcare was not found in your dashboards directory. So where is healthcare at? I don't know. It's somewhere else. So just for the expediency of this demo, let's get rid of this guy here, and let's put this back to, in fact, wait a minute. Let's just go check web demo 1. Oh, look at that. Healthcare is not there. So I guess I don't have healthcare. I know, I thought I did. So let's go back and let's get this up media URL. We'll use this guy, which is up on our server, and I know healthcare is there. But this just shows you how easy it is to swap your test backend with a local backend as you're testing. It's like super simple. So now all the errors are cleared. I'm back in my dashboard, and man, does that look good. And look at, there's no edit button. There's no maximize visualization button. I only have those properties that it allowed me to have. So if I go to campaigns, no maximize button. And you know what? Maximize, we should let people maximize. let's go back and comment this guy out, and let's get rid of show header like so, and I'll save it, and I'm back. But you can see the flexibility when you have an API like this. You are basically giving control to your user, so you're not having to deal with every single problem. So let's change this to just a spline chart, not a spline area. And I want to do a time series forecast of 6 periods. And you can see this is happening live. Like, I'm not writing code. I'm not doing anything to make this happen. It just works. So I just did a time series forecast. So I can say that, oh, we should expect spend to be 13,000 by middle of February 2023. I mean, that's how easy this is. So I just wanted to highlight a couple examples here of how easy it is, not only to set up the server, but to set up the client as well. And then to use some of those advanced features like dashboard creation, setting different properties to enable and disable items. And in fact, even in the SDK, if I edited this guy, which I can't, let me try and see if our export to Excel will cooperate today. Let's open up that. And here I have my data as well as a chart. So we do a little bit extra on the export. So you can see the actual forecasted data. You can see the real data. So it's actually pretty sweet. So with that, let us go back to our slides, because we are, as usual, always running out of time when I do these demos. So let's wrap this up. I want to thank everyone. Try Reveal today. Hopefully you saw how easy it was to set up and how quickly you can enable this in your own applications, be it Blazor, React, Angular, it doesn't matter, .NET Core, Java, Node.js. All those samples are up on our GitHub repo, so you can check those out. And if you have any questions or you want to deep dive, email sales@infragistics.com or shoot Casey or myself an email, and we will get back to you right away. So with that, let me check to see if we had any questions here. Questions, Q&A. No, this is not open source. I'm sure there are open source offerings out there that do this, but this is not an open source product. And you can learn more about our licensing at revealbi.io. All right, everyone, thank you very much. And I appreciate all your attendance today. And we will see everyone at the next webinar in a couple of weeks, which will cover more about some of the capabilities of Reveal and some of the benefits of what you get using a product like Reveal. So have a great week, everyone. And again, we appreciate your time today.